work on my State of the Union speech, and I worked on it till pretty late last night. But I want to say one thing to the American people. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
I was the first one to report the dress.
Was she the second one to report?
She was the first one in the main broadcast, and I don't want to take anything away from her. She has been one of the strongest reporters. I'm damn proud of this lady. She's been, like Mr. Isikoff has been, and we can talk about his new book, which is fascinating, leading the way on an investigation that was not the favorite investigation in this town in the beginning. You know, I had Lewinsky online on this website for 4 days while the mainstream press decided if they wanted to cover it or not, or if they could prove it. But Jackie Judd came out strong, stayed strong, continues to be on the beat. A moment of controversy was when her producer thanked Jim McDougal, who of course is the deceased partner in Whitewater, who caused nothing but trouble for the first couple. And at that point, Hillary started laughing, because I guess it became theater of the absurd, how all of this continues just to amaze in a town that doesn't seem to have much boundary.
And joining us from Miami, Matt Drudge. He gets about 10 million visits a day on his website, The Drudge Report. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. We were so innocent then, Steve. We were so innocent.
How did you get the Newsweek story? How did that all unfold?
I got an email months before that was kind of a riddle. POTUS does certain sexual act with certain intern in certain office. It was a stupid email, and I put it in my Keeps file. I have a Keeps file here at the Drudge Report, and I ignored it because I get so much of that stuff. I get so much of the stuff now on George Bush. He's drinking again, he's drugging, Laura Bush is smoking. I mean, it's just endless. So I put it in the Keeps file, and it didn't really heat up again until the weekend of his deposition in the Paula Jones case, where he was asked about this certain intern and the certain sexual acts and in the certain office. I got a heads up that this was in play. I had no idea until that evening Newsweek was even on it, or Isikoff was even on it, or any of that. But I got a heads up. You may want to check Newsweek. They have just spiked the story. I called Lucianne Goldberg, who was not my original source on this, and she was not thrilled. Not because I wasn't calling. She had read the website. I had never talked to her previously. And she said, you know what? I can't lie to you, Drudge, but Newsweek ain't going with it. And I said, you know what? I've got to go with this. So I dug that original email out of my Keeps file, and based on Lucianne Goldberg's confirmation, and also based on another tip that I had gotten that the president indeed had been asked about this at the deposition, it all came together that night. It was a Saturday night, and I hit enter, and it was Newsweek spike stories, sex in White House with interns, something like that. So that's a long way of saying it was an email tip.
And that Sunday morning, if you watched ABC or CBS or NBC's Meet the Press, it was beginning to percolate. It wasn't the lead, but it was talked about in the roundtable. So how did this story then unfold from there?
It was dismissed on Stephanopoulos with This Week. He said, well, it's coming from the Drudge Report. Well, of course, we know that's code for unreliable gossip. And boy, he sung a different tune about a week later when Stephanopoulos was first to raise the impeachment word, long before anybody else. It started to move around. Bill Kristol went out pretty hard on it, too. I think he was in the loop with some of the lawyers in the Paula Jones case. He knew this thing was going on with Lewinsky. Started to move around, but still nothing. I then, the next day, named her. I didn't name her in the first report. Then I printed her resume out, and then I printed Ken Starr moved in, tapes, dress, all this stuff. And then Sue Schmidt and Pete Baker over at the Washington Post went that night. This was a Tuesday night, I believe, or a Wednesday. And all heck broke loose. And of course, that morning, after Sue Schmidt and Pete Baker went at the Washington Post. It was a complete slaughter. Newsweek then playing catch up on AOL. At that point, Newsweek didn't have a website to speak of. I don't think they had teamed with MSNBC yet. So they issued their report on AOL. And at that point, it was a free-for-all. But for 72 to 96 hours, it was an internet-only story from my website that was located in Hollywood, California. Everything was being shaken up at that point.
The day after we heard from President Clinton, in which he denied sexual relations, we heard from the First Lady, who appeared on NBC's Today Show and interviewed by Matt Lauer. She said basically this is the result of what she described as a vast right-wing conspiracy. What did you think?
I knew they were on defense. Speed was beating their spin. My speed was even beating some others. Isikoff went on the Today Show to deny the dress, or he wasn't prepared to report on it. That thing, Jackie Judd went that following night. There was so much speed on the internet. Things were happening so fast. I remember calling Lucianne Goldberg, God bless her heart, and saying, you know what, I just heard Ken Starr has moved in, and she goes, you can't do that. Don't do that. Don't report that. It's going to throw the investigation up. I had to do it. It was one of these things that things were moving so fast, and obviously it was going to be a very serious investigation, and I couldn't hold that back. So the right wing, or at least Lucianne Goldberg and I believe Linda Tripp, they were not thrilled that the internet was plowing through. They were hoping it was going to break on official media, i.e. Newsweek, and have more of an official creed to it, thoroughly investigated by Isikoff. I think the reason they eventually decided to hit pause on it is they wanted to, they're claiming now, to look in the motivation of the people that were presenting the story, the Tripp, the Goldberg. I, at the time, thought it was Katharine Graham putting a break on it since she owned Newsweek, and Vernon Jordan is on the board there at the Washington Post Group, and he was involved in the story. I had a bunch of theories of my own, but I knew the First Lady was being rocked, and I knew that White House was being rocked. Later in the grand jury and testimony with some of the witnesses, it all came out that the White House was truly being baffled by the internet medium.
Matt Drudge joining us from Miami. Our phone lines are open. For those of you who are Democrats, the number to call is 202-737-0002, and for Republicans, 202-737-0001. One final question before we go to our first caller. Do you think, in hindsight, the president should have been impeached for these charges?
Well, Steve Scully, for the record, he was impeached. Though I think he should have been removed from office. I think they owed the taxpayer at that point a full trial in the Senate. I remember the late Rehnquist and teaming with, I believe, Trenton Lott and the Democrat leadership in the Senate. It all felt kind of chummy. There was no witnesses called in the trial. There were some video depositions taken. I remember that. It felt shortchanged for everybody who was involved, and especially the House of Representatives, the Judiciary Committee there, who had worked so hard establishing these impeachment counts and then passing it. The trial didn't feel satisfied. Do I think he should have been removed from office? I think the people spoke. Clinton had approval ratings in the 60s at the time of all this was happening. I don't think the American public wanted him removed from office, obviously.
But do you think even these charges would rise to the level of the impeachment trial that he faced?
That's an interesting question. Lying to a grand jury, giving misleading statements, all of that probably did rise. I think the Clinton supporters and the Clinton staff was very effective at making Ken Starr the boogeyman. And also saying this was a private life, this was about his sex life and all the rest. Okay, all that is fine and good. The problem was it wasn't the Oval Office. The problem was there was a lawsuit filed by Paula Jones. The Supreme Court ruled she had every right to file this lawsuit. It was being pursued. I just don't think you can throw all sexual harassment lawsuits out because someone claims it's their private life, and that's what Clinton was hoping to do. But in the end, I think everybody got a little bit of something. I mean, looking back in retrospect, everybody seems to be satisfied with the way it did turn out. The president was impeached. He wasn't removed from office, but then he finished his term ranked higher in the Gallup poll ahead of Ronald Reagan, according to the American public, if you look at his overall averages. So, provocative way to end the century.
Naperville, Illinois. Go ahead, please, with Matt Drudge, who's been on the program, by the way, on 14 different occasions. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and let me say C-SPAN is a gift to our country. It truly is. Brian Lamb he's a real patriot. They allow the people to call in and talk to their elected representatives and to keep a spotlight on the government so the people can be aware of what's going on. Is just, I don't think it can happen anywhere else but America. It's really a great thing. I hope it does happen across the world. But for us, the book notes is another thing. The idea, you want to educate the kids and educate the people. It just is a fantastic thing. And one comment about the Clinton thing: the only thing that was hurt in that thing was the country, because we wasted so much time when we had other problems. The idea that you'd want to impeach the man for this kind of thing, he should have resigned. If it had been an honorable thing would have been for him to resign and spare the country, and then Al Gore take over the presidency. But no, we had to go through all this rigmarole and this turmoil for nothing. It was ridiculous. It was a complete waste of time. And I thank C-SPAN again. God bless C-SPAN.
Thank you for the call. Another caller from Atlanta, Georgia, 5-year viewer. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. First of all, I think that the attempt to impeach President Clinton was a travesty. If we look at previous presidents, the media never pried into their personal lives in that area. And as the previous caller said, it was a blow to the country more than anything. And, of course, as a Democrat, I blame the Republican witch hunt and the media part and parcel. I'd like to ask Mr. Drudge if he has any information regarding DeLay, Frisk, and Karl Rove, of course, since in my view there's a gross pattern of corruption that's been ongoing in this administration, and I wonder what his thoughts on that might be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we'll save that for the 2008 year of C-SPAN. And I'd like to stay focused on 1998 if we could. Of course, we could talk about DeLay and Rove and everything else that is pending. However, 1998 was an interesting year, and Louis Freeh, the FBI director, has a book coming out next week. He is set to appear on 60 Minutes tomorrow night. They've pre-taped the interview, and he is pretty hard on President Clinton and saying there was all sorts of trouble there. There was preoccupation with the scandals, what was coming next. It is quite a blow. So I think to not be willing to even talk about what happened in the 90s is not doing anyone justice. Obviously, there were things to talk about, things that happened. And it's an old trick to go, let's talk about DeLay and Rove. There'll be plenty of time to talk about them, and I suspect C-SPAN's 50th anniversary will look back.
And we'll have you there for that. If you go to the Drudge Report right now, you have what you call the Drudge Flash. Myers voted for Reagan in '84. Also, the president warning of riots, shortages, and millions dying on the flu epidemic. And from LA Weekly, some changes at the ABC program Commander-in-Chief. Where do you get all this information, and explain what's on your site at this very moment?
Well, it's a community of tipsters and information and wire services and newspapers. The lead comes from the old gray lady, the New York Times, who's obtained a President Bush, soon-to-be-released report on what would happen if this wicked avian flu were to hit America. And it creates quite an apocalypse of $1.9 million dead, riots over vaccine centers. It is horrifying for anybody who saw what happened during Katrina, or at least thought they saw what was happening during Katrina, of riots and mayhem. This was quite a provocative story. The other story coming out of Hollywood is Commander-in-Chief has apparently let go their executive producer or their creator. They had taped, my information is, a scene where a Secret Service agent raped Gina Davis, who plays the president's daughter. And ABC Disney didn't want to do this. They've replaced Rod Laurie with Stephen Bochco, the late word out of Hollywood. We'll see if that one holds up. And it's an information free flow of back and forth. The Myers tip came from inside the confirmation of Myers, the confirmation team, who's quite conservative. The conservatives are not rallying behind President Bush's new pick for the Supreme Court. So they're now saying, look, she may have given a little money to Al Gore, but she voted for Reagan, she voted for Bush, she had a religious conversion. They are quite scrambling at the White House to shore up some support for this candidate as she heads up to the Senate.
A 10-year viewer from Zion, Illinois is next from Matt Drudge. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Drudge?
Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm a first-time caller, and regarding the presidential impeachment, I think it was handled properly. I'm a Republican and always will be. There's one other comment I have about you personally, because I saw you on a C-SPAN coverage of a National Press Club annual dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You were one of a number of speakers. And the most amazing thing was, at the end of the dinner, with the cameras still on, every reporter, both local, international, and otherwise, rushed to the podium and talked to you because they were just so fascinated by the truth that you were telling everybody that night. And I don't think you were ever invited back to another National Press Club dinner. Am I correct?
That wasn't a dinner, it was a luncheon, and I have been invited back. I just have nothing new to say. I mean, at that lunch, I declared the din of small voices, an era vibrating with citizen reporters. All that's now catching up. I don't see a new vision from what I declared that afternoon at the National Press Club. And you're right, they were coming up at the end because here was this guy on the internet moving so fast through the Washington, D.C. Media circles because I didn't work for them. I didn't report to any of them. I had no editor. So it was quite a sensation all this was being done on the internet. Now, I believe that was in 1998 or 1999 that we went to the National Press Club, and C-SPAN was kind enough to carry it. I remember Mary McGrory, the late Mary McGrory over at the Washington Post writing, "Who is this guy who wears his hat indoors, and why did all of Washington stop to hear a guy named Drudge?" I don't think it was about me at all. I really do think it was about the new medium that was taking place, and I just happened to be there first. I don't even know why. I think it's just because one thing led to another.
And we, by the way, cover all the press club luncheons at the National Press Club. Chico, California is next for Matt Drudge.
Hello.
10-year viewer, hello to you.
How you doing this morning? Or, well, it's still morning out here.
That's okay.
It's afternoon out there.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, that was one of the other things I wish you guys would do a West Coast edition at some point, but that's another story altogether. My question for Mr. Drudge is, how do you see accessibility now as opposed to, back when Clinton was having his problems? I see a lot of politicians have become very Hollywood savvy, such as Schwarzenegger out here in California, where he really runs the press. You don't go here, you don't go there, you can only stay in this one spot, you can't ask this person, you come over here, we're going to ask you to leave. I mean, it's really controlled. These are public people, How do we get this access? How do you get access?
Thank you for the question.
That is a good point because, I'm not actually a beat reporter. The internet is my beat, so I don't go to the press conferences. I don't go to the updates, the White House press briefings. I don't follow candidates around. I don't know what it's like there. I imagine it's strictly controlled, and we had this thing with Gannon and White House press credentials and who is a reporter and who isn't. And I thought, in classic C-SPAN form, you began this 25-hour marathon with Phil Donahue who had said, you know what? A reporter is anybody. A reporter is a citizen. A reporter is somebody who cares, who is interested. Darn right. And I've got no credentials either. I've got no license. As Roger Ailes told me a long time ago, license is something you need to cut hair, not to do reporting. So I would just suggest access is what you can make of it if you work through the system. I don't know about Schwarzenegger controlling the press. They all control the press. The press controls themselves now. I mean, we don't even have access to reporters. If we want to call some people, they don't return calls. So it's just a level of stardom and celebrity, and politicians now are right up there with movie stars.
New York City, 5-year viewer. Go ahead, please. Why do you watch C-SPAN, by the way?
I love C-SPAN. I am addicted to C-SPAN, and I watch it because I can't find anywhere else where you get, as they were talking about earlier, Randy Rhoads and Janet Parshall, both sides of every story. So I wanted to thank you for having, and the person
Sure.
who said that Brian is a saint is absolutely right. Brian is a saint, and I think he's one of the most well-respected people inside the Beltway.
Caller, what do you learn as you hear from other viewers around the country?
It's interesting hearing, I'm a Republican in New York City, and it's interesting hearing from, Democrats out there in places where they call red, like Oklahoma and Idaho and other Nebraska, other states. So it's good to get respect from people where you wouldn't think there are Republicans and places where you wouldn't think there are Democrats.
Thanks for the call. Matt Drudge, one of the questions asked last night, I'd like to ask you as well, who is the most influential in the media world today?
That is a good question. I have always maintained it's the wire services. So to that point, I would say whoever the White House correspondent is for the Associated Press. Who is that? Now, is that still Hunt?
Terry Hunt.
Terry Hunt. I would say his fingers have more power than any other individual in the media, simply because it is a wire-driven news cycle. You could say, as I think Buchanan suggested, it was the New York Times and the Washington Post. I'm not going to diss that. They certainly have a lot of power. I follow them. I can't wait to see what they've got for tomorrow in my news cycle. But it's the wire services. When something happens at any hour and any given day, it's that AP News Alert, it's that Reuters Urgent, it's also the European wire service, AFP, if they've got something, Princess Diana dead, as you did one of the headlines from the hour before 10 years ago. It is a dramatic period that now you don't have to be in a newsroom to read wire services. That on the internet, I believe the site Newsday was one of the first websites to offer the Associated Press, AP Online, which basically is a raw A-wire service that anyone can read. So I would still maintain it's the wire services that dictate the news cycles. And of course, from there, I do believe talk radio has a lot of influence. And I put Rush Limbaugh right at the top of that. And from there, you go to the anchorman, Brian Williams, Diane Sawyer in the morning with Katie Couric. There's a whole galaxy of influence, but it all starts with that AP News Alert, in my opinion.
Matt Drudge is a native of Tacoma Park, Maryland. Our next call is Wilmington, North Carolina, a 5-year viewer. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I appreciate you taking my call, and I'm very happy to be on with C-SPAN. This is the first time I've actually called in.
And why'd you call?
And have gotten through. I wanted to talk about Matt Drudge a little bit, and I'm not very pleased. I'm very pleased with C-SPAN, but I'm not pleased that Drudge is on by himself. He's very right-wing. He's very much known now as a Republican shill, pretty much putting out the points that the Republicans want to have made on the air. He's long been called out. He's long been proven to not tell the truth as far as truth goes. We're not getting an objective viewpoint from Drudge, and we never have. What we get is Republican National Committee talking points. And unfortunately, we're hearing some of that from him again today. He's already gotten his facts wrong 2 or 3 times. He's already said several things that aren't true. He's identified Tretlott as a Democrat. And
Well, caller, stay on the line. Let me give Matt Drudge a chance to respond, and if you want to also ask him a couple of questions, feel free to do so.
I said Trent Lott with his Democrat counterpart in the Senate. I didn't say Trent Lott is a Democrat. I know better than that, sir. I'm not, you say I'm doing right-wing Republican talking points. I mean, where are they? I mean, this is what I wrote down at home here in Miami. I have friends at the RNC. I have friends at the DNC. I mean, it was the Kerry campaign that was looking at my website on Election Day to get updates on some of the information coming out. So I don't know, sir, I don't know what talking points you're working off on, but I certainly don't. I go where the action is. Yes, I lean towards the right, no doubt about it. I want smaller government. But I think on any given day, if you go to my website, you could probably figure out I do throw both sides up there.
Caller, do you go to the Drudge Report at all? Do you get your information from his site?
Sometimes I go to the Drudge Report. I find it very unreliable, though. And actually, the interesting thing that I find about the Drudge Report is it's a good place to go to find out what the Republicans are going to be pressing. If you read the Drudge Report at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you're going to hear the same talking points on Limbaugh that afternoon and on O'Reilly later on that day.
Thank you for the call. Matt Drudge?
I don't know. I think Randy Rhoads reads Drudge, too. It's a fair criticism. I mean, I don't know who reads me. I go where the action is. Again, I'm hitting almost 11 years at this. I'm in business, and I have as many readers as I do, as I think, because I keep it interesting, and I follow and I go where the action is. And I've never met Karl Rove. I don't know these people. I don't talk on the telephone to them. So the caller's free to, of course, assume whatever he wants.
Our focus is 1998 and the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. We want to take you back first to the Chief Justice of the United States, William Rehnquist, in announcing the vote from the Senate floor, and following that, remarks by the President from the map room in the White House.
The galleries will be in order. On this article of impeachment, 50 senators have pronounced William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 50 senators have pronounced him not guilty. 2/3 of the senators present not having pronounced him guilty. The Senate adjudges that the respondent, William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the second article of impeachment. The chair directs judgment to be entered in accordance with the judgment of the Senate as follows. The Senate, having tried William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, upon 2 articles of impeachment exhibited against him by the House of Representatives, and 2/3 of the senators present not having found him guilty of the charges contained therein. It is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said William Jefferson Clinton be, and he hereby is, acquitted of the charges in the said articles.
As you know, in a deposition in January, I was asked questions about my relationship with Monica Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part for which I am solely and completely responsible. But I told the grand jury today, and I say to you now, that at no time did I ask anyone to lie, to hide or destroy evidence, or to take any other unlawful action. I know that my public comments and my silence about this matter gave a false impression. I misled people, including even my wife. I deeply regret that.
Matt Drudge, how will history view this period in American history?
Very good question. I'm, of course, seeing it from my own point of view. I'm looking at it from the advance of technology. It really was the first big breakout. I remember Michael Kinsley writing in Time magazine that this did to the internet what the Kennedy assassination did to television. I think that may hold up, actually, because I do think the internet will be a driving force in government, and especially exposing government problems. But it is going to be remembered, I think, as an impeachment of a sitting president with a divided country. You just saw up there, Rehnquist read the 50-50 vote. I mean, right down to the wire. But he was not removed from office, and he did leave office with high approval ratings. He is still very popular to this day, as Podesta pointed out earlier in the marathon here. So it is a mixed bag, but I think what you really take out of it is advancement of technology, because for days on the internet, that's the only place you could go to see what was happening on this story. And that, to me, is quite compelling.
Our next caller comes to us from Ridgelands, Virginia. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was wanting to make a comment about the first caller that called in regarding the presidential impeachment. He said he would like to have seen a resignation from President Clinton. Now, I'm a 17-year-old high school student. I'm taking government this year. U.S. government's a required class to graduate. And these issues are becoming more and more important to me every day, of course. The caller said he would like to see a resignation. Now, in my opinion, that shows a definite sign of weakness from a president. Maybe not in the case of, let's say, Richard Nixon, no. But Bill Clinton, yes. He stood up and defended himself against false allegations, and in the end, justice prevailed. What are your opinions?
False allegations, what, asking people to lie? I know that was the Moynihan, the senator from New York, also the late Moynihan, said if this is true, he has to step down, meaning if he asked people to lie. Linda Tripp claiming that Lewinsky said you must sign this, saying that, basically a cover-up on all of this, including his secretary Betty Currie and all the rest. So those were the false charges that were never proved? I don't know, because it seems to me he lost his law license. The judge in Arkansas that was presiding over the Paula Jones case fined him. There was other elements that obviously were proven, but I guess you could say history will note there were allegations, and plenty of them, that were not proven.
Also in 1998, bin Laden had issued his fatwa, which basically declared war against what he called all Jews and Crusaders. And Reagan National Airport opened and named after the former president. Our next call, Collins, Mississippi. Go ahead, please.
Hi. I first want to say that I had been a lifelong Republican, small business owner, until never voted for Clinton, either presidency, either election. But this was the turning point at which I opened my eyes, this issue having to do with the impeachment and the witch hunt over personal behavior at a time when we now are saying that we should have been paying attention to so many other issues, most pointedly the terrorism problem. We were spending, $70 million, and we were thoroughly distracted from other issues while we pursued a guy for having a little fun in the Oval Office. I mean, I just, that was the point at which I said Republicans really, I need to take a step back if these are the people that I identify myself with. So I just wondered basically, and the other point that I wanted to mention is that when Clinton did try to deal with some of the issues that we now are saying post 9/11 having to do with attacks on going after bin Laden, we claimed that it was a wag the dog scenario, and Republicans were quick to point out that that he was only doing this to distract the American people from his personal problems with the courts and what have you. So, and the issue about liberal media, I just don't see the liberal media. They were all over Clinton during this time, and they didn't investigate the WMD before we went into Iraq. So I just don't, I think the media goes after a sensational story, whatever it is. And so my question, though, for you, Matt, is do you have any regrets having been the fourth out in the front with this story that took so much away from our country and resources and time?
Do I have any regrets for revealing a special independent counsel was investigating the president for lying under oath in a deposition of sexual harassment? I don't have any regrets on that. Some of the stories I did about the cigar and the dress and all this other stuff, it got crazy, but hey, we have a crazy tradition in this country. You go to the museum when it reopens in Washington, D.C., you will see the tradition we have of reporting. It did not start in 1998 with the Lewinsky saga on the internet. It was long established that we report on our leaders and report everything they do and some stuff they don't do. So I don't have any regrets on that, no. And I point to this Louis Free book that is coming out next week. He is claiming in this book that when he met the Saudi leader after one of the terrorist attacks, Bill Clinton wasn't wanting to talk about that. He hit him up for a campaign donation. So there's a lot to go around. Let's put it like this. But I do think history will show that Clinton, there was a lot of questions around him. Bush, there certainly are a lot of questions around him and the WMDs, but I do think the press was not willing to go after Clinton, then it wouldn't have broken on the internet. It wouldn't have taken a new technology coming along to expose what the president was doing, in my opinion.
New Haven, Connecticut, Republican line, you're next.
Hi, good afternoon, and congratulations to C-SPAN on its 25th anniversary. I have a comment to make to Mr. Drudge, and Mr. Drudge, and I would appreciate his comment in return. As I look back on the Clinton impeachment, I truly believe that he wasn't impeached so much for lying to the American people, because quite frankly, I don't think if you're really accurate about it, many presidents who haven't lied at some point during their presidency to the American people, whether it's Ronald Reagan during Iran-Contra, or obviously Richard Nixon, or LBJ, or even Gerald Ford and his whole association with the Warren Commission. I think that's absolutely absurd to this day that he thinks that there was no conspiracy. I think what President Clinton was impeached for was largely his stupidity and the fact that he had no respect for the office, and quite frankly, that he didn't realize that things were not the same in 1990s as they were back in the 60s with JFK, that he was not going to get a pass on these things. And quite frankly, if it weren't for that blue dress, the man would still be lying. Let's be real honest about that. So I'd appreciate Mr. Drudge's comments, and again, congratulations to C-SPAN.
Thank you, New Haven.
Yeah, it really did come down to that dress, didn't it? That sort of settled it. I mean, there was all sorts of theories, as they were during the O.J. case and everything else. But when you have evidence, and I guess someone could say, well, Ken Starr planted the DNA, you know, as they did with the O.J. case. If you actually took it to a jury, I'm not sure Clinton would have been convicted in Washington, D.C., quite frankly, if they charged him with lying to grand juries. A jury's perspective would have probably been different than Congress and the House and the Republicans. But to say you let a president take a pass for lying under oath in a deposition, a civil case, I think would have set up a whole chain reaction in the judicial system. You already have people claiming, well, Clinton got away with it, I can get away with it, especially in the armed services, who are being thrown out of the armed services for having affairs and with employees and everything else. So to me, it was a rule of law issue. Where I stood in Hollywood, California, heck, it was just exciting, and I was leading the pack, and everybody was following and eating my exhaust. Simply, to me, it was look ma, I can dance. We are on the verge of a new revolution of citizen reporting. I have the President of the United States on the run. So I was seeing it from selfish points of view. I can look back now a little less excitable and say, you know what, there was wrongdoing there, and this is why Congress did take it seriously, and history will show he was impeached.
We are in one of 3 studios here at C-SPAN, and yes, that is a live view. The rain continues. Has it been raining in Miami, or is it all from Hurricane Tammy that's moved up the coast?
And we sent it all to you, even though we're way above average in rain, but Miami is always paradise, Steve.
And our control room is on the 1st floor. We're on the 6th floor here at C-SPAN on North Capitol Street. We'll show you what the control room looks like as we hear from this next caller in Detroit, a 5-year viewer. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to echo everyone's sentiments. Congratulations to C-SPAN. I really think we need to have more Andy Rhodes on much more frequently. Mr. Drudge, I mean, it's amazing that 10 years later, we're still investigating the Clinton administration. I read an article the other day about a Mr. David Barrett, who is still investigating Henry Cisneros from the Clinton administration. And I think it's an absolute travesty that you're sitting here and you're looking all smug like you've done something because you broke the story on the special prosecutor for Clinton. You've got so much blood on your hands right now. The blood of the victims of 9/11, all those things that Clinton
How so, caller? How so?
I believe that because of this man and because of that Julianne Goldberg or whoever the woman is, that we could have been addressing terrorism. We could have been doing the things that it took to stop Osama bin Laden. Bill Clinton would have had a free hand to go ahead and concentrate on the things to keep this country safe. Then, when George Bush came into office, there wouldn't have been such a stigma attached to the Clinton administration that George W. Bush could thumb his nose at all the intelligence briefings that he was given, and now George Bush is being given such a pass on all the lies that he's told. If you're such a reporter, sir, why aren't you talking about the lies that George W. Bush has told? Now, I know we're talking about the Clinton administration, but you're letting this president, just like all the rest of the media, have a free reign and get away with so much crap that it's just amazing to me that you can sit up and look so smug and think you've done this country such a great service.
Thank you, caller. And by the way, Mona Charen will be with us in about an hour and 15 minutes to talk about the Bush administration. Matt Drudge?
Well, he's criticizing us covering Clinton, and then he says, well, you should be covering Bush. Why not let Bush have a free reign then if Clinton should have gotten a free reign? That was a little conflict. Her name is Randy Rhodes, not Andy Rhodes, and it's Lucianne Goldberg, not Julianne Goldberg, since we're for historical records here on C-SPAN. I don't know if I have blood on my hands. The last time I checked, I've never had a manicure. I don't need to wash my hands. There's no blood. I don't feel guilty, sir, for following news and information. You as a citizen could set up a website and follow what you think is important, or click mine off. The notion that one cannot walk and chew gum at the same time, Clinton was not completely preoccupied. With the Lewinsky scandal alone, according to Louis Freeh, there was other scandals brewing up. There was the China problem. There was the ongoing problem with Whitewater, too, that was getting unresolved with Susan McDougal holed up in court, unwilling to testify, pulling a Judy Miller. So there was a bunch going on there, and I think to rewrite it in the cliff notes that you presented, sir, blaming the internet guy for blood on his hands for causing 9/11, I think Michael Moore would even go for that one.
More facts on 1998. First of all, the world population, 5.9 billion, 270 million Americans that year. The average median household income was just under $40,000 a year. The debt was $5.5 trillion. We also had a budget surplus that year of almost $70 million. And C-SPAN was seen in about 75 million households. C-SPAN 2 in just over 53 million households. El Paso, Texas. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As an American, thank you very much, sir, for having the show on. It brings both perspectives to each and every one of you, and thank you for your guest. In fact, the first time I called into your show was you, Mr. Judge, and it was an honor to talk to you, sir, and it's an honor to talk to you now. The only thing that I disagreed with you back in 1998 is I asked you about a gentleman called John Wong, Charlie Tree, and the Hughes and Horrell Corporation as far as the satellite transfers, because when I found out that the number 2 man at Hughes was the son of the Communist Communications Director, I was asking everybody, hey, forget about Monica Lewinsky. Why did John Wong get a top-secret clearance and was allowed to attend 30-plus Pentagon briefings? And nobody ever followed up on these. Have you gotten anything else on John Wong, Charlie Tree, or Hughes and Laurel and the satellite transfer, sir?
Well, we're now on to this Philippine spy. I don't know if you've heard the updates. But I disagree with that. Those gentlemen were covered thoroughly, I believe, in the press, especially the emerging populist press at the time and talk radio and the internet websites. I disagree. I remember doing endless headlines over these gentlemen. So I can't, we're looking back and we have a disadvantage by not having vivid memory. One thing I'd like to bring up, Steve, a lot has been made of President Bush's approval ratings being so low, 45% in Gallup. President Clinton's approval rating in 1993 in June 5 was 37%. In August 15, 1994, 39% approval rating according to Gallup USA Today. January 5th, 1996, before the impeachment came along, 42% approval rating for President Clinton. Now, the main press doesn't do a good job of reminding people that presidents have their ups and their downs, and I think this current president with the headlines, all-time approval rating low, isn't quite correct when you actually look it up.
Do you think Matt Drudge and the Drudge Report influences the process if a story shows up on your site? Does it, beyond the Clinton impeachment, but other stories on a day in, day out basis?
I have no way of knowing. I sit down here in Miami Beach and I mind my business from that standpoint. I always want to get out there fast, furious. I want to make sure that I get as close to reality as I can. I'm able now to update in 1 second. Last time I was on C-SPAN, it was 3 seconds to a new headline. Now it's 1 second to a new headline. So I don't know what the influence has on it. I don't know who's reading. That night of January 17th, 1997 or 98, I didn't know the President of the United States had been passed the Drudge Report by his assistant, Bruce Lindsay. That later came out. So there's no way of knowing who the heck is reading this thing. I just always like to keep it as exciting as possible from my standpoint.
Joplin, Missouri, for Matt Drudge. You're next.
Yes, thank you. And I've been watching past 4 or 5 years television, but also now on satellite radio. Listen to C-SPAN, and thank you for getting it out there as well. But I just
is it any different listening on radio than watching on television?
Well, obviously not to watch and see facial and physical movements and expressions, but I'm glad to have it when I'm traveling and on the road. I do a lot of driving, and it's to hear the news and to hear what's happening when it's happening without any type of filter to it is helpful to me in making decisions. I wish more people would tune in and listen, quite honestly. Pay more attention to things like this and C-SPAN and sports. It would probably be helpful for the country.
And do you have XM or Sirius?
XM.
Go ahead with your question.
Well, I just wanted to to finish a point that Mr. Drudge had made a minute ago, that nothing ever came of Whitewater. The final investigations, nothing ever came of it. It was put out as not a problem. But I would just like to ask him that he commented that Mr. Clinton had a lack of respect for the office, and how does he feel about Mr. Clinton's calling it a lack of respect for his office, when at that same time during his presidency he created 250,000 jobs a month average during his entire presidency. We ended up with a surplus, and of course the argument on his side will be that that's on the books and didn't mean anything, and also that we caught the people that bombed the first Trade Center. We also caught Timothy McVeigh, put him to death, put the others in prison, and yet it lets Mr. Bush slide on the bin Laden issue when we could have gotten him and didn't, and he's still out there being used as a shill or a threat to everybody consistently. And I don't understand, especially on the jobs issue, and Mr. Drudge had said that the current president, he's for smaller government, but this under the Bush administration, the government, the deficit is just running massively, and I don't. That's kind of a disconnect on that.
Thanks, Carl.
I'll hang up.
Sure. Who'd you vote for, by the way, in the last presidential election?
Pardon?
Who did you vote for in the last presidential election?
Did vote for Kerry, but I'm independent.
Okay, thank you. Matt Drudge.
Where to go with that? Each side sees things through their own prism, and there's a lot of pluses on the Clinton side for sure. I'm not so sure I buy all this job creation that he did and all the rest. The American people tend to do that, and I think the American people deserve credit for their economy and everything else, not necessarily the sitting president, but we could argue about that till the sun goes down. But again, the fact that he had a chance to catch bin Laden, he didn't. Bush has had plenty of a chance to catch bin Laden. We haven't. It is just one of these riddles that is unresolved.
Belleville, New Jersey, a 20-year viewer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your call.
Yes, indeed. I think C-SPAN. You didn't get my essay there, but of course it was only 4 sentences long.
What did you write? What was it?
I just said that C-SPAN is just an extension of being the right to vote, go into a voting booth, and every 30 days be able to pull the lever. I think it's just fantastic. I can't even. Well, that's why I'm not a writer. I just can't put it in so many words how great C-SPAN is and what it does for everybody. And one lady made a very interesting comment about after watching C-SPAN is so informed that she kind of found out maybe I'm not such a liberal or a conservative. Maybe I'm in the middle or whatever. And that's very interesting. I'm going to have to ponder that, because maybe I'm not. I'm a middle-aged white man, conservative Republican. I said maybe I'm in the moderate now due to the very informative C-SPAN. Anyway, yeah, Mr. Drudge is correct. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me about the Clintons. They could look right into that camera lens. They'd be great poker players. Look right into that camera lens and lie so perfectly with a straight face. This Susan McDougal and all their loyal people that are behind them is anyway. But anyway, just very briefly about Clinton and this impeachment thing. Politicians and presidents, they had their little titter-tates. But I remember when I was 11 years old here in Jersey, and we threw snowballs at the New Jersey transit buses, and it was about 4 or 5, I was about 10 years old. The police came, and they chased us, and we ran. And he caught me by the arm, and he said, I'm taking you to your parents. And I said, geez, what about them other kids? They're wrong. And he says, yeah, but you got caught. I mean, so that's it. He got caught. He's wrong. I'm not saying all the other politicians, they did it, but, hey, they were a little smarter. But Clinton, no, he'll look right in that camera. I'm innocent. I didn't do nothing. You got caught. You're wrong. You were a disgrace to the office, the Oval Office, the American people. Yeah, the others probably did it, conservatives and Republicans or Democrats. You got caught. And thank you, Mr. Drudge. You are so correct. You're so right. Everything C-SPAN is beautiful. I love it. And one last thing, C-SPAN is they say, why do you watch C-SPAN? Oh, there's a million reasons. One more is that, boy, when the host asks somebody a question, they give the person a chance to answer it. That's amazing to me. So thank you very much, C-SPAN. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Drudge. Thank you.
I love that call, because that is the reason I appear here. and not many other places. It is, the media and the future of the media is a giant question mark, no doubt about it. The internet lets you go at your own pace, put as much information as you can, as little information as you can. We're now moving to broadband where you're going to be able to broadcast if you want. It's a very exciting time, and C-SPAN will forever be remembered as the launching pad for this medium, calling in, facing people over the satellite dish. So bravo.
Ann Arbor, Michigan, 15-year viewer. You're on the air.
Yes, hi. Hi, Steve, and happy anniversary to all of you.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been listening for a very long time. I can't hear you. Can you say something?
We sure can. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh,
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm giving
All
you the
right,
chance to
anyway,
speak.
I've been listening for some time, at least like 13, 15 years. Yes. I'm not hearing you, Steve.
But we can hear you, so go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, for one thing, to Matt Drudge. I can't hear you, so I can't. Okay, to Matt Drudge, I want to say, Matt, I'm sorry, but you do have blood on your hands. I find it very refreshing when I heard Clinton admitting to doing something wrong, even though he had to admit to something that was nobody's business, and complete humiliation while you guys sat and chuckled and enjoyed yourself with your sleazy little blue dress. But meanwhile, and the man who said to see him lie, he took responsibility for the lie. I wish Bush would take responsibility and admit he did something wrong, like the war and the cause of 100,000 deaths of Iraqis and 14,000 soldiers, etc. I think those are important things. And you are a one-trick pony, apparently, like you said yourself. You have nothing new to say because your whole big deal was Bill Clinton's sexual little thing. You don't want to talk about Tom DeLay being indicted. You don't want to talk about the fact that Karl Rove, up to Dick Cheney, Scooter Libby, probably committed treason, according to Bush's father. None of these are as important as a blue dress. I could see why your priorities are a little mixed up.
Thank you, caller.
Well, the caller's mixed up, too. This is the year 1998. She is a prophet. She has Tom DeLay convicted and sent to prison. She has Karl Rove, obviously, already in prison. She is a prophet. I'm in 1998, ma'am, talking about quite an era of impeachment in history that has already occurred.
You mentioned technology. What is new, or what's next for the Drudge Report?
I'm on radio on Sunday night, heard over 300 stations, but my love still remains that website. It is efficient to me. It moves fast. I can put up whatever exactly I want to put up. It is seen as I want to see it, no middle person. So to me, I'm just all steam forward ahead with the current Drudge Report as seen there. As far as the other caller goes, with the blood on their hand comments, I don't know, why would you say a reporter has blood on their hands for reporting things that are happening? That is a very odd dynamic. I don't want to start sounding like Al Gore saying we're in dangerous times with the media, but why would you simply go after me for reporting what was happening? There was a blue dress. There was an independent counsel investigation. There was a majority in the House who voted for impeachment. So I'm very baffled by the rewrite of some of these callers.
And finally, have you been to the Clinton Library in Arkansas?
No, I have not. I have not stepped foot in Arkansas, so one day I hope to see it. I understand they need people to go down there. Attendance is a little soft.
Matt Drudge, who is joining us from Miami. We always appreciate it. Your 14th appearance here on this network, and we hope you'll come back again.
Thank you, Steve. Congratulations.
And one more look at the Drudge Report at www.drudgereport.com. We're going to turn our attention in hour 20 to violence in schools, and later we'll introduce you to Eric.